this. This was supposed to be Disney's films celebrating the gigantic legacy of over 100 years in the business of animation and creating stories that people will remember for years and years to come. This movie? What am I talking about? I'm talking about Disney's Wish. A film that had so much potential. And we're going to be getting into that today. We're going to be talking about Wish and my thoughts on this. So, without any further ado, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and be prepared. I'm not holding back with this because I'm very upset with this movie in particular. So just go ahead and roll the intro. First things first about this movie, and it is one of the very first things that we see in this movie at all. First things first, they are very upfront that this movie is going to be taking references from other Disney projects and shoehorning them in this movie. Be prepared. We open up with old 50s to 60s Disney fonting in a room that has a book on a pedestal. The book opens magically and we see the story. A la like Sleeping Beauty, for example, which was always one of my favorite movies. Look at side by side. Side by side, there you go. It doesn't stop. Be prepared, because it doesn't stop throughout this entire movie. And it is one of my biggest problems, probably, with Wish. And then we get a narration explaining to us the history of the Kingdom of Rosas. And in this kingdom, it is ruled by a king and queen. And before they decided to build this kingdom from the ground up, they are magical beings. Well, he at least is. I'm not sure if it's implied that she has some kind of magic or not, the queen. But he does, and his name is Magnifico. He's the king, and him and her, they go through tragedy together. They land on this island, they decide to build the kingdoms, and invite people from all over the world to come and behold Magnifico's magic, which is the power to grant wishes. And he, on the 18th birthday of his citizens, will then take the wishes that he is given by his citizens willingly, and then he holds on to these wishes and will grant them if he sees fit. That's it. He grants them if he sees fit. And our main character is a girl named Asha. Now, first thing you're going to learn about Asha is she is very much a cookie-cutter Disney heroine. And she has a 100-year-old grandpa, which makes me feel like since he's 100 years old and this is Disney's, like, celebration of 100 years movie, if I feel like the grandpa is like some kind of parallel to the company in a way, because it's his 100th birthday. Anyway, and then her mom, which I don't even know if we know the mom's name. I don't even know if we learn her name or not. But Asha's whole thing is that her grandpa is 100 years old on this day, and she wants, at this wishing ceremony, or granting this wish ceremony that Magnifico holds every single month, I think it is. Like, every single month he holds a wish ceremony where he grants someone's wish. It's her grandpa's birthday on this ceremony day. And Asha also has a little interview with the king to be maybe his apprentice or not. So her whole thing through this movie is wanting to get her grandpa and her mom's wishes granted by the king. So she goes to her interview, she sees the whole room with the wishes, and then she asks Magnifico, after they have this wonderful little bonding moment, they meet, he finds out who her dad was, and he's like, yeah, I kind of knew him, he was a good guy. And then they start singing about like their values in this song. Like, this is straight up in like the span of 5 minutes, including the song, is like they meet, they talk about her dad, and then they start singing this song. And as soon as it's over, she asks Magnifico to grant her grandpa's wish. And then he just flips on her. Like, like outside the movie, we knew that Magnifico was going to be the villain, which was actually refreshing. Disney was showing us who the villain was, because twist villains is another thing that they've tended to do. Asha straight up asks him, and he flips. Like, you see the lighting get darker and everything. It takes 5 minutes of him being nice to Asha and her asking a simple question for him to flip on her, which takes no time at all. It's literally the span of 5 minutes. It's crazy. And then through the rest of the movie is how you would expect a Disney movie to play out. Like, this movie was very much just cookie cutter Disney. They went with what they knew besides the animation style, which is why I'm not going to really judge the animation style, and I'm going to be upfront about that right now. The animation style is fine. They actually tried something different. For once. So the movie plays out how you think. Asha makes a wish on a star in the sky. It comes down, and it looks like something they're probably going to very much turn into a marketable plushie. I mean, there you go. So he comes down, and then they get together with some people, which are her friends. And they do say their names. I just can't for the life of me remember, and I didn't find any of them memorable to write down, but all I did write down about them was that they were clearly a reference to the Seven Dwarves, which they are. One is literally like short and stocky and has a bad mood, and he's like has something on top of him, like some kind of animal. I think it's like a dog or something, like licking his face, and he's like, "This is why you guys call me Grumpy." One literally sneezes. And one is seriously, like, just dressed like Dopey. And he hardly, they follow the same mannerisms and everything as the Seven Dwarves. So they're just a huge reference to the Seven Dwarves, and the references do not stop in this movie. They win, they save the day, and now I'm going to get into, like, particularly just the characters. We're going to jump into our characters now. 1, Asha. Let's get into Asha. I know I've already mentioned that she's just your run-of-the-mill Disney heroine, but this is another side tangent that I want to say about this, because one of the things people keep bringing up is this is how Disney has really been making their heroines lately. They're quirky, and they are relatable as possible, and people say that, like, this has happened since Tangled. And that it hasn't stopped, and it really hasn't. It's a trend. I've noticed it too. But one thing people forget to realize is that for characters like, I'm going to even say as far back as Ariel and Rapunzel, those two characters, being quirky and a little bit clumsy and being relatable in that kind of way makes sense. It makes sense. Look at Rapunzel. She has been living in a tower for 18 years. This woman has never even felt grass between her toes before. It made sense for her. And then it snowballed, coincidentally, with Frozen. With Anna. And then Elsa and their whole chocolate. And we all know how Frozen did, and Disney saw numbers between Tangled, which I think is better than Frozen. The only reason why I will not debate is because Let It Go is a great song. Do not judge me. I like Let It Go. It's a banger. Anyways, moving on. It makes sense for those characters, is what I'm saying. And after the success of both Tangled and Frozen, Disney saw dollar signs, and they saw that this kind of protagonist was relatable, and they've just kept going with it. But the point is that it made sense for people like Ariel, who hasn't been in the human world. She hasn't felt sand between her toes, even. Like, she's never had legs before. Just a fin. It makes sense for her to be stumbly and weird and awkward, and not just because Ursula took her voice. It's also in her body language as well. She doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. She's never been in this kind of situation before. It makes sense. But for people like Anna and Elsa, who grew up in castles, getting, if we're going to go by like traditional royalty education, which, huge history nerd here, I know too much about royalties, particularly like the Tudor era. Like, I gobble up any old royal drama, okay? I like that kind of stuff. So, I know quite a bit about that. They would have governesses. Sometimes they would send their kids away to just live and learn how to take care of their own households with a governess or a team of tutors and a governess to teach them different things, whether it be a boy or a girl, like a prince or a princess. Like, princes ended up having like a whole squads of tutors. Like, literally, like, 6 people on a team just to teach this kid what he needs to know to run the country. You know, like Anna and Elsa being the 2 heirs to Arendelle, they probably had a pretty stacked education, as well as a governess to teach them etiquette, even if the doors were shut. You think they're really going to stop teaching their kids anything, like they're prisoners? And then one day they're going to die, and like they're going to just let Anna and Elsa out after being in intense isolation if they haven't gone nuts? No, they still probably had some teachers there with them in the castle during, the times where they weren't really allowed to see each other. They probably still had those kind of things. So when they're at the party and they really don't know what to do, it doesn't make sense for Anna to be like that kind of weird, and especially since we see her like talking to people in the castle, and it's like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for those kinds of characters, but people liked them, so Disney ran with it. And now it's led to Asha. And it's, quite frankly, hurts the character because the voice actors did no problems here. I think all the problems with this movie primarily lie with the writing, the direction, whoever the fuck was in charge of putting in these references. So here we go. Buckle up, everybody. Buckle up for this. This is going to be my scathing review, and I am going to read off the rest of my notes so I can stay on track and keep this video under an hour because I will rant. So here we go. About the king. The king being the villain should have worked, but it simply didn't. He's a twist villain. Another thing that Disney has favored in recent years. But the promotions that I had seen for this movie made it very clear that he's the bad guy. The studio straight up showed us that he's the bad guy for the first time in a long time, and that it looked like he could be a good villain. But that was quickly erased once I saw this movie. He has so little time to be fake nice that the so-called twist literally has no effect. 1 second, he's mid-song with Asha about protecting the wishes, and all it takes for his mask to slip was her kindly asking him to grant her grandfather's wish on his 100th birthday. That's it. Like, the lighting grows colder, and Magnifico explains why he will not grant her grandpa's wish. Gets rude with her, and then all the fast fondness that they've had for a whole 3 minutes. It's literally like under 2 minutes. It's like 2 minutes and 51 seconds. That's it. That's all. It takes her just timidly asking him a question for him to flip the paradigm, and now he despises her. Plot's gonna plot. Number 4. They literally had so many upfront references that they named a deer Bambi, a talking bear John, like Little John from Robin Hood. They were so shameless with references. And here's a little side thing. In the movie, the whole premise is Asha getting her grandpa and her mom's wishes. We see what her grandpa's is. It's just to inspire people through music. Okay. Cool. What's her mom's wish? Don't ask me. Even though I watched this movie, we never find out what her mom's wish was. We never see it. Yet we see in the little bubbles, which I'll be putting an example here on screen, in the bubbles of the wishes, you see what people's wishes are, like a crystal ball kind of thing. How come we see Wendy and Peter Pan being referenced numerous times, as well as Snow White? The literal poison apple and the entire lair that Magnifico works in is almost a one-for-one creation of the evil queen's lair in Snow White. Poison apple and all. At the end of the movie, Peter Pan is literally speaking to the queen and introduces him to a girl in blue named Wendy, and together they're gonna build a flying machine. The references are so in your face and distracting that I literally couldn't pay attention most of the time. I was paying attention as close as I could, but I kept being reminded of other movies I would probably have much more fun watching. That's how many references are in this movie. They're so in your face. They're blatant. Asha looks like the fairy godmother from Cinderella, almost implying that this is some kind of her origin story or something. There's that many Disney references that people are actively theorizing right now online that this is an origin story for the fairy godmother from Cinderella. The references are that plain and that clear. It's so distracting. I can't as soon as the movie opened, it's a whole reference to Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and any other movie that came out in the 50s to 60s that had those books that opened. It starts at the very beginning of the movie in its first frickin' frames, and it doesn't stop. And it's so distracting. Number 5. The pacing is so off. And the pacing was off. Probably because they were shoehorning in references to Bambi and Little John. But I digress. Those scenes with those animals in the forest could have been substantially lowered. For as little as they matter to the movie. The voice acting is fine. I do not blame the voice actors. As bad as I think this movie was, I feel like the issues lie more with the writing and the directing rather than the movie talent just simply doing their jobs and giving it what they could with what they were doing, giving what they could with what they were given. This cast is star-studded throughout, and I feel like they did their best. 7. The King's song is just weirdly upbeat, and the lyrics are bad. He literally says, "I let you live here for free, and I don't even charge you rent." In a Disney song. Are the good composers in the room with us? Because I'm not seeing them. Did AI write this? This isn't a Disney song. Y'all couldn't have tried harder. Okay. 8. The movie was just very predictable and cookie cutter Disney of all time. Just everything is how you expect it to go. Now into my final thoughts. This movie on paper sounded great, but the execution left some to be desired, and I feel as if a massive amount of references to other movies seriously bogs down the film. Some of them being so in your face and more used than others. I could have at least counted 5 to Peter Pan alone. Not to mention the use of character names and designs such as Bambi, John, a boy dressed in green named Peter, because you're so busy seeing other stuff and instantly being reminded of other films that you know and love. The songs are fine, some are straight up messes. And as I said before, the acting was fine, and I do not blame the voice actors for doing what they could with what they were given. The problems lie within the writing and the execution of this movie. The pacing was sloppy at best, and it's in my opinion that it could have benefited from being pushed back a few more months to really look at the current finished product. It felt rushed, there were plot holes and moments that made absolutely no sense towards the end. such as Asha's motivations as a whole. One of those was to get her mother's wish back to her. What was her mom's wish? We never see it, and yet we see Wendy flying in her flying machine. We never see it, and we see Wendy flying in her magic flying machine wish twice. The references must have meant more to Disney than telling a good or even cohesive story that would shine on the company's legacy of being good storytellers through the use of animation. Instead, 100 years later for the mouse, sadly, it's all about reminding you as the viewer of just how good that they used to be and how far that they've fallen. Into checking boxes and making profits off those better stories for as long as they can milk it. And it makes me sad. It really does. I wanted to like this movie and give it a chance. I didn't want to hate on this movie going into it, but the more I watched it, the more I wished I had stayed home and just watched the movies that they kept reminding me existed in this film. I'm going to go ahead and give Wish my official rating, which is a 3 out of 10. Which is probably the lowest thing I've ever given. I think that's the lowest score I've ever given. Sorry, I keep mixing up my words. It's ADHD. ADHD, everybody. The words don't come out the mouth properly sometimes, but yeah. I wanted to like this movie. I really did. And some small part of me always holds out hope that Disney's gonna get its shit together, but this just really hurt. Because not only is this supposed to be the movie that shines on what Disney has learned and has grown into over 100 years, and it just feels hollow, heartless, and stuffed full of references to IP and more famous media that Disney has made in the past. Because everything that they've made in 2023 have been all flops. So I was really hoping this movie would turn things around back to Disney's glory and doing things that are new and exciting and with music that makes you want to cry, which has always been one of my favorite things, has been the music in Disney movies. But this was really sad, and some of the songs were just complete shit. So that's what I got for you guys. If you feel like it, you've come all this way, please hit the like button on the way out. I don't just talk about this stuff. I also talk about internet news, internet drama, try to commentary. I don't exactly know what to call those kind of portions, but I do that. I talk about internet news and I give my opinions. I talk about movies, TV shows, and books as well. And whatever else I want to talk about, because this is the random show. Things are going to be a little bit random on here. So that's what I got. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!